Hello and welcome everyone to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I'm here with another special guest, Chris Winston, who has been a leader in delivering Maximo via the cloud since 2001. With over 2 decades of experience in this field, Chris has witnessed and contributed to the evolving landscape of Maximo and cloud delivery. As an IBM champion and a member of board of directory of Go Maximo, Chris has contributed a lot for this community, IBM community. So in this episode, we are going to learn a lot from his wealth of experience and wisdom. But before we start the discussion, I would like to thank Chris for joining us in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. I've actually worked with Maximo since 1996, basically doing installations, implementations on premise, database development, sort of getting it started. And somewhere along the way, when Project Tech kind of got involved with it, it was really more around getting away from on-premise delivery and installing it remotely and giving people access to it. Uh, Browsers weren't around, but remote desktop was on every machine. So it made it a lot easier to actually make that happen. And that's really where all of it started. It allows us to simplify a lot with regards to moving from one implementation to another. Allows us to make a lot more standardization uh, on implementation and delivery, which we continue to enhance even through this day.
Okay. And Chris, as you have been delivering the service from a long time, which is quite an impressive feat. So could you share the story behind your journey into the Maximo and the cloud delivery? Like just in a detailed manner, like how everything got started.
Sure. My career actually began in utilities maintenance,
Okay.
and it was really around, well, at first it was actually setting up a mainframe system on, I think, an HP, which I left that company because I got laid off, and then started doing consulting, actually back at the same company. But one of the things that happened with that overall was mainframes were just too expensive for people to have. So we started bringing computerized maintenance management into different companies via service bureau. And that's really where everything started. So the companies really never saw the computer, just
Okay.
the reports, the training, and the analysis. And from there, they did a lot of the work on paper and submitted it. And we had data entry pools that would handle all the entry. And then that just kind of established that cycle until minis and then PCs and then network PCs. It became more cost effective for people to have things on premise. And that worked well with Maximo, starting out as a department solution, sort of in the back, in the maintenance department. And that's where it began to evolve to expand to what it is today as more of an enterprise solution. But overall, within that entire process and that evolution, the technology's changed. But at the end of the day, a work order is still a work order.
Okay. Okay. And if we talk about the IBM certification and expertise, so your list of IBM certification is extensive. So how have these certifications contributed to your expertise in Maximo and your ability to deliver value to clients? So can you like discuss the importance of certification in specifically it IT industry and how they have shaped your career, particularly for
Sure,
Maximo?
certainly. So training, implementation, and use are probably the best areas and ways to get prepared for certification. But the thing
Yes.
about it is that your implementations are driven by your client base. Sometimes they're industry specific. Sometimes you go across industries. Sometimes you work in certain functions within that industry or within that company. So it doesn't give you broad exposure to Maximo. Um, Certifications and studying for certifications really forces you to get out of your comfort zone. Whatever area you focus on, certifications are more broad and cover the entire application, and preparing for them requires you, if possible, to take assignments that are out of the primary areas you've been, so you get more broad exposure to the application, and then, of course, study. within the application itself and then how it's used. That's also what helps you to prepare for the certifications. And for me, it's just been a way to actually continue to have a broad-based approach to Maximo because I never know what the client's going to want. And
Yes.
some clients start in work management, some start in inventory. It's really up to them and what their business process needs are, and we just need to be prepared for all of them, and the certifications help you with that.
Okay. Okay. And as a VP of Strategic Alliance, you have managed teams to handle both short and long-term goals related to MRO, CMMS, and EAM system. So, what are some key challenges you faced in those days and while handling and explaining those things in aligning with the systems with expertise, resource planning, ERP requirements, and how have you overcome those challenges? Because there are some people who also facing such kind of issues while maintaining their team and while providing solutions. So how you deal with those challenges?
So usually the biggest ones are pretty common. It's getting users involved, getting key users and stakeholders involved and committed around design, training prep, and execution, and all the way through that process. Um, it can be cumbersome, so we try and start that way and identify who those people are going to be at the beginning of the implementation, make sure that they know that they're involved and what that level of involvement would be, and then try and keep them in that part of that process because ultimately Maximum comes with a set configuration. Nobody really uses it. They tailor it to their business. They look at what their requirements are, and we need to get that information. We can't just make it up. So we need to get those key users involved. And we also need to understand parts of their process that are going to be involved in this because sometimes we need to alter the process before we computerize it because just adding a computer to chaos just magnifies the chaos.
Okay. Okay. And with the rapid evolution of technology, how do you see the role of enterprise assessment and management EAM systems evolving in the next few years? And what new technologies or trend are you most excited about? And how do you plan to integrate them in your work with Maximo?
So interesting to use the word integrate. Um,
Mhm.
Maximo is not the system of record for everything, right? It
Okay.
probably is the system of record for work orders, PMs, job plans, but maybe not so much for inventory or procurement to a degree. So there are generally more options for integration because the information is useful on both sides. And it's probably even more consideration for information on the production side. If you're manufacturing execution system, because ultimately there's a question of downtime. Well, downtime's reported in Maximo, but then you have downtime reported in your production system. Hmm, are they the same? Not all the time. So ultimately whatever you have in Maximo, you need to be able to prove it in the other systems. And in a lot of cases, integration helps you because it gets you the data into the right place for analysis, so you can make these comparisons. Um, Probably the thing that has been most interesting to me around the change in technology, somewhere along the way, IBM, in the move to Maximo Application Suite made a number of upgrade change requirements that are in place available in 7.6. So rather than skewing all of your upgrade tasks and when you upgrade to mass, you can actually do some of the things in 7.6, which we've incorporated and we have for years so that we don't have those tasks to do when we actually need to do our actual upgrade for our production maximum. We have a few hundred of them, but one of them just happens to be ours. And that has simplified the overall upgrade process for the ones that we're doing now because we don't have all of those tasks to do. And IBM really did a good job and a good service to us to be able to do that. And that's one of the things I've been trying to talk about and get information out on really at most of the conferences I've spoken at all year.
Okay. Okay. And as a member of the board of director for Go Maximo, what initiatives or project are you currently most passionate about, and how do you see Go Maximo influencing the future of asset management, and CMMS?
So part of Go Maximo, well, really, Go Maximo's charge really began in oil and gas, and that was primarily the focus.
Hmm.
Oil and gas and health, safety, and environment, and the add-ons. But as part of it, though, these add-ons still require core knowledge. So we try to cover both at every conference, so we make sure we're still addressing things in the core product as
Okay.
well as those that are in part of the add-ons, but also some things that are unique to the industry itself, specifically disconnected access. There are a lot of places, because oil fields offshore, um, where it's not just disconnected, but in some cases there's satellite communication that's involved as well. And those are the things that we try to incorporate as well because of the uniqueness of the oil and gas industry, while still incorporating the key pieces that are involved with the core maximal product, which you have to have in place before you really get to the add-ons.
Okay. And here I would like to ask one question for those freshers who wanted to pursue their career for the Maximo technology. So let's say if someone wanted to start their career with Maximo technology, so what are some initial steps for them? Like how they can start learning the platform, the technology, and how they can decide their career path for this particular area.
So career path is going to be pretty varied depending on which way they want to go. But I
Okay.
always go back to um, MRO, actually PSDI. PSDI standard training for everybody was first a class in work orders, well, basically in work management, which was really work orders, assets, job plans, PMs.
Okay.
Um, then you could go into inventory and procurement and a sequel class that would get you
Okay.
ready for administration. And those basics are really still there and in place that just gets you into the core product to the point where you maybe not an administrator, but at least a super user sort of knowledge and skill set around the product. But after that, there's just so many different ways you can go. I mean, you may deal with some, just on the infrastructure side or security, you may a system super user, an administrator on the functional or the technical side. The main thing though is to just get involved. And if you have, especially in a consulting role, if you have those kind of options, go into multiple ones, multiple industries, and multiple parts of the application. Again, certifications require you have a broad-based knowledge of the application, and then that's just a good way to do that because you have that knowledge. So when it comes time to taking a certification test and studying for it, you've at least covered the primary areas that you'll be
Yes.
involved in. It's always a good place to start.
Okay, so thanks for sharing this informative details. I think now those who wanted to make their career for this technology, they can at least start their career learning something about the basics at least. So it would be
Sure.
really very helpful for them.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll find a lot of at least for 7.6 right now, a lot of the training's free, both in the more maximal community and in IBM.com/training. So that, and again, most of that is free. So it's
Okay.
really more a matter of making the time.
So is there any specific criteria for those courses? Like anything specifically needed for that? Maybe
No.
any educational? Okay. Anyone can learn, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing. Like there is no such barrier, like no foundation. You can, if you are
Yeah.
interested or passionate, yeah, then you can learn it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And in your experience, like what role does the human element play in the successful implementation and management of EAM system? Because nowadays we talk about Chat GPT and other AI tools. And how do you ensure that human factor is not overlooked in the pursuit of technology efficiency? So what's your thought on this?
Communication. It has to start early and it needs to be consistent and just ongoing throughout the implementation. And by the way, you have the quote unquote implementation project. Well, project implies a start and an end.
Hmm.
Implementation project can have an end, but the overall implementation does not. So the changes you make and rolling out Maximo in an organization, um, that starts with communication and it never ends. You know,
Right.
you'll have upgrades that'll take place. You may have changes in your process, in your environment. You'll have changes in personnel, and then they'll need to be trained, not just in the tool, but in the process and how you use the tool. And all of that really is driven around communication.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you roll out an AI tool, the interesting part about rolling out I mean, work order management, AI is out now, which enhances reporting around failure. But if you don't have a good failure hierarchy and a good history, the AI doesn't really have a lot to work with. So it is still going to involve the human element, the communication, and the start of any use of AI really requires them to look at that historical information and that communication. That's actually getting that information documented actually inside the Maximo environment, as opposed to just writing on a work order and sitting in a cabinet somewhere. It needs to be inside the tool for analysis and for it to work. So it all starts around communication, and it's got to go across the organization, not just an
Mm-hmm.
individual department.
Okay. Okay. And like you have been recognized as an exceptional trainer. So what is your approach to training, and how do you ensure that the trainees fully grasp the complex concept? Because sometimes we have the things which is a bit complex and it's not that much of easy to understand in the very first interaction. So how do you plan for everything and while giving any presentation or any training?
So Maximo is massive. It's
Yes.
complex, and it has no sign of shrinking ever.
Mhm.
The tools that are delivered within Maximo allow you to make it bigger.
Yes.
I always look at trying to make it smaller, but security is the first thing because you give people access to everything, regardless of the license cost. Just if you look at the
Mhm.
functionality, it's daunting. You really don't want to do that. You want to get people access to what they need, and you want to train them around that. You want to train them early on shift, and inside that, you want to have your kickoff. What that's going to be led by your key stakeholders, because odds are you're making a change within the organization, and people need to understand where that's coming from and why it's there. I try to do every class with exercises, whether it's a large class or small class, in terms of the number of people that are in there. Exercises help them sort of sharpen the saw. It just they learn the concept, they do the exercise to get a better idea of how it works, and then they can apply that externally. And the two biggest things that we end up with, if we can,
Mhm.
because they're hard, but first thing is if we can get the business to provide each student with work in production after the class,
Okay.
so they use it and that's proctored. And then the second one is we typically try and train from the rear of the room. We
Okay.
don't always get that option in training room setups. 'Cause, I mean, I rarely see them that way. I have a form I send and I request that, but a lot of times they just tell me, well, we can't do that. Um, I had luck at Princeton one year. The room was actually built that way. And the reason is they don't need to see me. They need to see the screen, and I need to see their screens to make sure they're not getting lost. And
Mhm.
if I'm standing in the front of the room, I can't really tell that. If I'm behind them, I can see it and I can help out, slow down, repeat an example or something like that, just to kind of keep the whole room going. So those are probably the things I mainly look at around training.
Okay. And as per your so far observation, like what you think like the most common obstacles for those students or maybe the newcomers who started learning about these technologies? So what are some common obstacles that you have noticed so far?
Um, I think we'll have time commitment. Training
Right.
is hard. I mean, getting people to training. I mean, that's one of the biggest things I've been seeing for the last few years. In fact, I actually wrote a blog about it last year. I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to see administrators now because they are thrown into it and they sort of get the assignment and the responsibility, but not necessarily the training or the experience. They just want to kind of get it because they're the most knowledgeable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot of requests for information in the More community or in the IBM community, and it's public information, and you could try and answer those questions. And I'm happy that we have such a good ecosystem in Maximo worldwide, where we have a lot of people that come in, they see a question, they can answer it, and they do. And a lot of them get answered relatively quickly to help people along in their overall implementation process. But getting administrators nowadays, right now, is probably the biggest thing I see people having trouble getting those people properly trained and prepared to actually take on the responsibility of Maximo administrator.
Okay. Okay. All right. Uh, the next question is related to IBM Champion program. So, how you think, like, how this program has helped you, and how the things got changed after once you got recognized as an IBM Champion?
Well, first off, champions are advocates for
Right.
IBM, and it can be, the IBM ecosystem is massive. I
Yes.
mean, Maximo is part of sustainability sector, which is one of over a dozen. Um, there are close to 1,200 champions worldwide, but probably less than 60 of them work in Maximo. It's not a big group. And I think part of it is, I continue to be an advocate for the product as I have been pretty much my career. I think we have a number of options on that around how we deal with it internally. But one of the things that we try and do is continue to communicate that and communicate the values of the maximal proposition, and through conference presentations, which I've probably done more of this year since I've been a champion. I would say, yeah, that's probably
Okay.
right. And that is sort of continuing, not really part of my job, but it is something that we need to do. And there's information that needs to get out there that is um, sometimes a little bit harder to find. There's
Hmm.
so much now you can Google, but once upon a time when IBM made the acquisition, you might Google something and you get no responses, or maybe you get a page. Now you get, 15 to 20 pages for the same query.
Yes.
Where do you start, right? Because something on page two never gets seen. So it really kind of comes down to helping people navigate through that, to give them the specific information you had. And like I said, a lot of my focus this year has really been about Maximo administrators, and sort of some of the things that they need to have that are useful to them now in their current version and as they continue proceeding towards application suite.
Okay. And how you are managing all these stuff together, because you are by profession you are doing your own stuff, then you are contributing for IBM community, and then you are doing you are playing your teacher role as well, right? So how do you maintain and each and everything, and like how you are balancing the things, because it's not that easy to maintain all the things together.
Sure. I ask for help and I get it.
Okay.
So the free training that we have, for example, in the More community,
Hmm.
I was let's see, I think I wrote the curriculum and I was the editor. I didn't write a single one of the classes. We contracted that out, and where possible, I'm happy to have the support team and organization I have at Project Tech. I can pretty much ask anybody anything, and there's somebody around to help me. It might not be the person I ask, they'll find somebody else. And that's just kind of something that we do internally. You get a question, you kind of own responsibility for getting the answer, even if it's not coming out of your head.
Hmm.
And that has been a really great culture to be in, which is why I celebrated my 20th anniversary in April. But really, I've actually been here probably since 2001 because I started as a contractor. So it's
Okay.
more like 23, almost 24 years.
Okay. And you are like Chris, you are known for your positive attitude and making the workplace enjoyable for others, because I heard a lot about your attitude and your way of working with your colleagues. So how important do you think this mindset uh, is for the professional setting, and how do you maintain it even during the challenging time, because sometimes we are also facing challenges, so how you maintain such type of attitude?
I think each day can be what you make of it for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, I'd rather it be positive, so I try and look at every challenge as an opportunity. Um, and if it's a challenge for me, again, that's what I always told our, or my wife and I both, we told our children, you need help, ask for it. And we'll try and find it for you if it's too complicated for us, which some cases it was. Um, Same thing at work. We have a number of people. Project always tries to hire smart people, and people are willing to share that information and to share that knowledge. And that's something that is very useful to everyone. So it's not just what you can do for you, it's also what you can do for those around you. And I try and uplift everyone
Yes.
around me as well. And it just helps and presents a positive attitude, even when, somebody's picking up the phone and say, yeah, I don't really want you guys to service anymore. I think I want to go find somebody else. And we look at that as an opportunity to figure out what went wrong. Where is an opportunity for us to improve, or is there a miscommunication? And we just try and keep that attitude on everything because it helps us to really overcome those obstacles.
Mhm.
And then we feel better about it and get the work done. It's a great combination. And we can actually enjoy coming to work because I enjoy coming to work.
Okay. Okay. And with such a demanding career, like how do you maintain the healthy work-life balance? Are there any specific thing or the practices or routine you follow to stay grounded, and like how you are managing your day?
So my wife and I both traveled different parts
Okay.
of our careers a lot. We try to make sure we schedule that
Mm-hmm.
and go on vacation. I mean, we just, we really try to make sure we go on vacation. I mean, I don't want to have vacation days leaking over to the next year. Want to try and use them wherever possible. And, when we started having kids and we had family vacations, we still take now, although our kids are grown. But it's more to life than work. I mean, there's a lot of other things that are involved, and we try and get
Yes.
involved in those as well. Um, you know, Sometimes it meant going up to school. Give you an example. Our kids are 4 years apart,
Mm-hmm.
and we found a weird one's in college, one's in high school, and there's actually 1 year where we had both spring breaks in the same week.
Okay.
We had no idea that was going to happen. So we took a big vacation. We went around to the other side of the planet to Dubai for a week. So, it's not something that you get to do all the time, but if you plan for it and you look for those opportunities, even while you're working, you can do that and enjoy it. Have a good time. I mean, the work thing, I like going to work, but at the same time, I like going on vacation too.
Yes, we need both things. I completely agree with this because if you are living with such mentality, like then in that case you can manage and you can improve your productivity as well. Because if you are having a good time as well along with your works, then for sure it will enhance your productivity. So that's a
Yes.
good thing. Any other hobby hobby for you, like how you spend your weekends or what you love to do? Like one thing is traveling that you mentioned, just that you love to travel a lot. So apart from this, any particular hobby for you?
I volunteer. Probably the two biggest things for me: travel and volunteering. I volunteer. I speak to kids about science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
One elementary school, at least once or twice a year. The company has an adopt a class program. We adopted a class near the office. We
Okay.
have contact with them about 10 times a year, including uh, I had the orange team this year. When we had them into our office, we bring the class to our offices, walking distance, and
Okay.
they get to participate in a number of activities. So we try and do things like that. And I also work with the Board of Elections, um, both early voting and regular voting, again, volunteer activity, things like that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, Chris, like we have many things to discuss, and like with your experience, there are many other topics that we can discuss, but just because of the limitation of time, I would like
Sure.
to ask my last question. Like,
Sure.
what advice would you like to give to young engineers who aspire to specialize in reliability management system or enterprise asset management like you?
So I started out as a maintenance supervisor in utilities maintenance, and um, when I got laid off from there, I went into consulting, and the opportunities came in various industries and various functions, and I just sort of was a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much just took whatever they gave me.
Okay.
The more challenging, the better. The more variety, the better. I tried not to be stuck in one area, one industry, or one function, so that I would get a better idea because I didn't know what I wanted to do at 20, 25. Um, it gave me the opportunity to see more things and more options to decide what path I actually wanted to choose. And I think that was a great opportunity. And if you can avail yourself of it, I think it's probably the best way to go because, a lot of people don't necessarily know where they want to go in terms of industry or function, even if EAM is where they want to be, or they want to be somewhere else, if they want to be on the functional side or the technical side, just dig in and learn.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us in this episode and for sharing a lot of information with us related to Maximo and your advocacy. So thank you once again. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and thank you once again for your time.
I did. Thank you, Amit.